I must say, Redfield, I know we're here for this interview, pal, but we got to pack it up here. I do love a good bit of knowledge, and you are a knowledgeable man because, well, folks, we get on to the intro now. Welcome here to another episode of the Soul Sessions. I'm your host, Soul, and with me today, the knowledgeable one, the gentleman of all around here in Scotland, Leon Redfield. Welcome, my friend, to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. How are you doing
Absolutely.
tonight?
Very well, Redfield. Very well. But now, Redfield, as I always love to say with every guest on the show, every guest has a story and every story has a beginning. Redfield, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
Right, this takes me back now. I was very, very young. The first match I remember watching was it was Crush versus Doink the Clown of all the matches. It was on like Sky One, and this was when Crush was a goodie, Doink was evil, and there was like 10 crushes or something. I remember it's probably only two, but I remember a lot of evil clowns attacking him, and I was like, "That's me. I'm in. I'm in." So I must have been 6 or 7 at that point, and that was it. Hooks were in.
Hook, line, and sinker, Redfield, indeed, as well. And, mentioned Doink there. My first exposure to Doink was the whole Dark Side of the Ring documentary covering, Matt
Right.
Boynton's whole career and legacy, And Doink, kind of had a resurgence. He's back in the video games, had like a Hasbro Plus, like a figure build around him as well that people could get for a classic Raw set. Do you think Doink really is one of those slept-on superstars within WWE's history?
Genuinely feel like he was a very underrated heel, very underrated bad guy. Was it the Crush match, or there was a WrestleMania match where they did the whole doppelganger thing where they were doing like the mirror image, and yeah, Crush, Crush getting annoyed at him making kids cry, like, yeah, it's this. There's definitely a place for him, and so yeah, no, like he terrified kids. So absolutely, the more kids we have terrified at wrestling, the better.
Well, it's always a good job to see, getting people engaged and having a reaction is the main thing we want within the wrestling business. But obviously, that time period as well, it's so special to people. Obviously that was kind of like late new generation, then going on to Attitude Era, sort of cross between the eras. And obviously myself, not watching around then because obviously I wasn't even in existence at that point. But that time period being so special, is it just nostalgia, you think, Redfield, or do you think it was truly energetic product at the time?
It was nostalgia, and I feel like a lot of it is now a match happens or a show happens, and there's hundreds of reviews of it before the show's even finished. You can go on YouTube or Twitter or X, sorry, and see so many people talking about something that's barely finished or halfway through it. You didn't have that. I'm absolutely going to date myself now, but back when I first started watching wrestling, it was like you would watch Raw or Nitro on the Friday, like 5 days after it aired in the States. Didn't know what was, we didn't really have internet to the extent that we did now. And, Vince would reveal himself as a higher power on the Monday. We'd find out on the Friday or Saturday morning, and you're the only people you could really talk about it was the other weird kids in the playground. So everybody built things up. You built things up with each other, and I think that's literally all it was. Like, not to take away for like the actual work that was going on, because as well as all the storylines, like you had The Rock, you had Austin, you had what's his name again? Kurt Angle. How do you forget Kurt Angle's name? It's been a long week. It's only Wednesday. But yeah, you had these guys who could wrestle as well. And then as you get older, you start appreciating those guys a bit more. And when you go back and watch it, something I've actually started doing is watching 1996 Nitros, just for the sort of when the NWO formed. And it's mad because you'll have like NWO for like half the show, but then they'll randomly throw out a 10-minute cruiserweight match where you're sitting watching it being like, no one had seen this before. So yeah, nostalgia, but also, the guys could work and they could get a reaction. So
Redfield, you're absolutely right there, pal. And especially, WCW, you mentioned that there, and I mean the NWO. and the cruiserweights, two great things. But the NWO especially, you know, they would have their own independence or pay-per-view as well. NWO sold out. Kind of a failure, kind of not the best thing the company did at that point. But do you think it was maybe ahead of its time? Like now in our day and age, like I'm thinking of stuff like a Bullet Club focused pay-per-view or something like that. Do you think it was maybe ahead of the time?
Yeah, I'm not there in the watch rate because I watched it in sort of real time. I did watch Nitro growing up.
Mm.
So I think for me, and this is purely like armchair booking. Oh well, I would have done this obviously, yeah. But I think having a pay-per-view or having like the baddies just in total control, where there's no light at the end of the tunnel, you need that light. Like when Vince was on top, you had Austin coming at him, and Austin, you knew Austin would get him at some point. You never had that with the NWO. It was always Hogan's on top because Hogan is on top, and there was never any end like light at the end of the tunnel. I think that is kind of what killed it, among like a myriad of other decisions.
No, absolutely. I mean, especially you mentioned killing it. Obviously, WCW was killing it and doing so many great things, and then there was a point where it just went wrong. And I feel like people isolate these to 3 points. It's when they announced that Mick Foley was going to win the WWE title, or it was when David Arquette won the WCW title, or it was the whole Hulk Hogan Bash of the Beach situation with Vince coming out and cursing him in front of the live audience. I know Redfield, out of those three situations within WWE's history, which one do you think was the downfall?
Um, it's hard to pinpoint that really. I think for me, given the actual wrestlers like creative control over their own like matches and storylines, like I think you need that to a degree. But when Hogan's and I think with the was it the Dark Side of the Ring came out and did the Bash at the Beach, you seen like it was literally in his contract that he can't like he has creative control over everything. It's just not going to work if everybody's got that, and it's too many cooks, it's too many egos. But at the same time, you look back on it and it is entertaining. Maybe not for the reasons they want it to be, but it is entertaining. Um, I'd say telling everybody that Mick Foley's going to win derisively and everybody immediately jumping over to see what happens is a sort of unparalleled cell phone.
I mean, I'm sure there were a few broken TV remotes, people trying to scrounge up and get those remotes and change the channel as quick as they can. And obviously, WCW would continue on and have their final Nitro, which Vince came out about. I mean, you probably watched that live, if I'm correct, Redfield, right?
Uh, Not so much live, like as live as we got. So it would have aired on the Monday, and I would have watched it on the Friday.
Right.
And it was strange because I was watching WCW was on Bravo at that point, I believe. So I still tried to watch both of them. I watched Nitro first, and I do remember like Vince, like because it's a set of Vince opening up with Raw's War, and it was a bit. It was for my like what age would have been like sort of 14 at that time. It was like what's happening here, like, and then the rest, what happened, what unfolded, unfortunately.
Very true, mate. I mean, I feel like though that last Nitro ending with Sting and Ric Flair kind of facing off is very sentimental to the company's history.
Oh yeah.
Redfield, I'm going to propose a question right now. It might be a bit difficult, but I want you to build your Mount Rushmore of WCW. 4 individuals you think were like the pillars of world class.
Well, I mean, Sting and Flair have got to be on there. I would, I would be tempted to put just more horsemen up there, but I'll keep it to Flair. But with the asterisk that Arn and Ole and Tully should be there as well. I would say Mysterio's got to be there because he wasn't the only one, but he was sort of the flagship of the the cruiserweights, the Lucha Libre that they brought over, and that was a big factor for people watching it, for me watching it. Like 10-year-old me watching Nitro at that point and just being blown away by what this guy they're calling was, oh, he's tiny, he's the same height as me, but he's tiny, and the stuff that he's doing. And I would honestly, I would put Vader up there. I think he's very underrated these days because people remember his last WWF run, but sort of early 90s, he was unstoppable. Like they pushed him like an absolute killer. Um, and I think he especially with, like, the sort of the WCW era, moving away from NWA, he was like their big bad for a few years. So yeah, I'd say Sting, Flair, Mysterio, and Vader. I'll probably remember after we finish up. I'll probably remember about 5 other people that should have been there, but those are the those are guys that I'm drawn to. Like those are like 4 like the guys like that I remember from
I mean,
watching it.
I tell you what, Redfield, all good picks all around, and I think it just shows that even now people look back at WCW with so many fond memories because it was a very special place. It was indeed. Now, of course, Redfield yourself as well, you would, being a fan as always, but you'd be one step further and actually get into the squared circle. That process of going into training, how did that come about? Was it just on a look at a dime or thinking, yeah, let's go?
Yeah, it was opportunity and sort of being in the right place at the right time when Andy decided to open formerly FPWA, now PWR Pro. So I've been kicking it about for a while because Joe Hendry had opened a school like a month or 2 before, but I was still staying at Fife at that time, and it wasn't feasible for me to get through to Joe's school. Or with the shifts I was working, my real job, it wasn't a regular 9 to 5, so I couldn't really commit. And around about the time that Andy opened up FPWA, I was moving over to a more regular 9 to 5 job, and it just made sense. And yeah, it was just an email to Andy, and about a month after that, we were the sort of the first intake of FPWA.
Hey, I mean, I've had so many from, formerly FPWA, from like the Daisy Jenkins, the Jason Reed, Hunter Sampson, Johnny Lyons, Lexi Campbell, so many great talent as well. And I've learned from, their time speaking to Johnny and Andy about their learning style. And I wonder if you know from yourself, Redfield, learning under that style of, learning, how beneficial is it to you?
It's great. The one thing that Andy always said when he opened the school is he didn't want there to be like a sort of culture of bullying or hazing or anything like that. He wanted like a sort of family environment, and it's something that him and Stu, Johnny, have been great at sort of making. Like you go there, everyone has a laugh, everyone's just really supportive. And it's great for someone, especially I was a late starter. I was 32 when I started training. So to have like that sort of the edge on guys in terms of advancing years. Some of the guys we've got are like you mentioned, Lexi's 16. We've got the par who are, I think if you combine their ages, I'm still older than them. But they're unbelievably talented guys.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've got that family environment and you're training with people like the ones I mentioned, and then like Tommy Cartel, like Daisy Jenkins, just really, really sort of inspiring people, you're only going to get better.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I like to think that's how we all sort of feel.
Oh, absolutely, Redfield. I mean, even with your age, my friend, you've got the wisdom, the wise. You've been through many. You've got the mindset. I know you've tried to, educate others that, you've tried to give them wise and tips. What happened there,
Yeah,
pal? I need to know. Come on.
yeah. I mean, I'm sort of the elder statesman of and this is going to be going to be tricky for me to start saying PWR Pro instead of FPWA, since it's literally just been a couple of days ago that the change was announced. But you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I can only tell these young greenhorns where to, what to do. It's up to them whether they listen to me or not.
Aye, fair dues, Bob. I mean, if they're watching right now and they're thinking, hey, maybe have some points. What kind of lessons would you give to these guys watching?
Just just follow my lead. That's simple as.
Hey, Redfield, got to lead by example, man. I think they will, because I mean, you do have a victory under your belt as well. Because I know you and Zachary Swift teamed up against the Me Factory at Truth or Dare and came out with a win.
We did single-handedly. Not absolutely fair and square. There was no controversy surrounding the end of that match whatsoever. And yeah, myself and young Zachary have our first official win. I believe that was his first win on a full FPWA show, or now PWR Pro show. So yeah, that's what I mean. Follow my example, and the wins keep coming.
See, you've got the example and the evidence right there, Redfield. But also, we have talked about FPWA now becoming, Pro Wrestling Radio. I'm not even going to get the name mixed up because I'm so used to FPWA. It's going to be a real tough one to get out the vocabulary there. But when I saw the change on the Instagram, I was kind of like taken aback, like, whoa, I don't remember, like, I didn't hear any kind of rumors or anything like this coming about. For you guys, did you had ringlings of this coming about, or was it literally just that picture of you guys sat down, Andy speaking in front of you and just saying, here we go?
Pretty much, yeah. We knew that there was a new paint job coming. We knew the unit was getting freshened up, but we didn't know that a full rebrand and expansion was coming. Because that's the other part of it as well, is we're continuing the sort of the training school in Glenrothes, but there's also one opening across the water in Livingston. So that it was a lot of news to take in, and but to be honest with you, I think it just shows how much how successful Andy's been in sort of building this brand up, this school up. I think he's gone on the record, I think, as saying that he wants to make it like a sort of destination training school. I think if he's not already done that, he's well on the way to doing it. I think with the quality of the seminars that he lines up, like the 2-day Rampage Brown seminar that we just had at the start of last month, and if we've got the two schools in play, there's just so much more that we can do, really.
Oh, absolutely, mate. And I have talked about, with the seminars, had Hunter and Daisy talk about them, with Rampage Brown and Wild Boar. I want to know, Redfield, see if you could go to Andy and say, I want to have this person, specifically this person, come in for a training seminar. Who and why?
Okay, so are we talking, realistically, or just, anyone at all?
It. Let's go. Come on, make the dreams big.
Anyone at all. I would pick someone who I could cop out here and pick a couple of guys, but I'll go for one guy, and I would love an hour training under Samoa Joe, purely because he a guy who's been around, he's done it all. I think he's one of the most complete bigger guys that has wrestled, full stop. And just I don't think he's had a bad match, genuinely. Like, everything he does just looks fantastic. So even an hour of picking his brains would be wonderful.
That would be class, mate. I'm thinking it now. That'd just be spectacular. And obviously, Joe, he's had so defining eras, Ring of Honor, TNA, NXT, main roster WWE, and now AEW. Which era of Joe, Redfield, do you think is the best?
Well, I'm of an age, and I think I don't know if you'll remember this, but we used to have the wrestling channel, sort of early 2000s, and that was my first exposure to Joe because it would run Ring of Honor. So that's where I first seen Joe versus Punk 1, 2, and 3, and the match I particularly remember was Joe and Jay Lethal versus I can't remember exactly. I think it was Homicide and Low Key, actually. Just this big, like, huge brawl throughout the arena. So yeah, like, I'd say Ring of Honor Joe, just because he was something different, even in what was an emerging company that was different from everything else. He was different still. He was just a sort of bigger dude who moved like he wasn't a bigger dude.
Fair dues indeed, Redfield. And obviously, I want to propose what I like to do is like the little dream scenarios. And sometimes it's either someone winning a title or someone having a dream match. I want to propose to you a dream retirement match. Not yourself, Redfield, but how would you have Samoa Joe's retirement match? Who would you want him to face in his final ever match?
I think purely because, like I touched on this earlier, and it might wind up with being Punk's retirement match, but I think that Punk versus Joe, like that rivalry in Ring of Honor just did so much for both of them, and it got so many people invested. I think Punk versus Joe would be the way to go. Failing that, running it back, AJ Styles, because I think they two work so well together.
Yeah, that would be a banger. Very much would be a banger indeed, and I would be very very excited to see that. I mean, who knows? Maybe AJ's contract can expire. We can get that all in next year in Wembley.
Oh, we can but hope. We can but hope.
I'm hoping as well. And obviously, AW All In coming back to Wembley next year. Such a very important thing for UK wrestling. Shows we've got a drive for the product. We want to see it. We want to get the tickets. We want to, screw Ticketmaster. I know it's a pain in the ass, but we just want to get there and get to the shows and see them. Redfield, for All In 2, now obviously within the UK, do you feel like they're going to go bigger and badder, or do you think they're going to kind of keep the same hype level as last time?
I mean, it's one of those. I sort of peek behind the curtain. I had every designs on going to All In, but decided to buy a house instead. So, hopefully next year I'll be in the position where I can go. But like, I feel like everyone I knew was there, and it looked like wrestling had taken over London for a couple of days. It felt like a WrestleMania weekend in terms of like everything that was on. I know there was there's some other shows as well apart from AEW there. So I think genuinely, if they could turn that into a yearly thing, I think they'd be onto something, because there's so many of us that want something like that, but conceivably going to America every year for WrestleMania, it's not feasible for most people in the UK or in Europe. But if it's in London, or if it's in Glasgow or Edinburgh or Manchester, somewhere accessible for us, I think they've got I feel like they would sell that out every year just because we're ravenous for it.
Exactly. And I mean, Riv, I need you to educate me, man. See if I'm going insane or something. Because I've always vocalized, I want a big show like WrestleMania or All In or Impact Bound for Glory or something like that in the Hydro or Murrayfield Stadium in Edinburgh. And people say, I'm crazy. No, they wouldn't do it. We're not that, Scotland's not the market for it. Why would they bring such a big historic shows like them to the Scottish stadiums? And do you think I'm crazy, or do you think that is a missed opportunity?
I think that's absolutely something that they should, is feasible for sure. I mean, I live, I'm walking distance from Murrayfield, so I'd be absolutely fine with that. So yeah, if Murrayfield can hold Taylor Swift 2 nights in a row, which we're gonna do next about 8 months or something, 10 months, something like that, we could hold wrestling, because as much as I love wrestling, Taylor Swift is a bit more mainstream. So if we can have Taylor Swift there 2 days in a row, I don't see why we couldn't have something like not even necessarily a WrestleMania, but like a Money in the Bank or an All In, or Bound for Glory might be pushing it in terms of, I think Impact's a fantastic show, but it doesn't have the capital behind it that the other two do. Although it's a show I really enjoy, and there's a lot of great workers on there. So hopefully its time will come.
Hopefully its time will come, and then who knows? Taylor Swift's got connection with Jeff Jarrett. Maybe we'll see them two on an AEW stage, and that would be
absolutely.
Cool. I fear the day that comes, because all the Taylor Swifties are going to be like, get me the AEW t-shirt that has Taylor Swift on a tiny little limit on the bottom right, and then they sell out. Best merch ever. Now, Redfield, you are someone who's got the insight, the education, the intelligence, and a few of your, Pro Wrestling Ready Pro, I think I got it right there, students or friends and colleagues are going to be doing some other shows. I know Hunter Sampson's got a 4-way for the Pro Wrestling 2 Scottish International Championship, which is a previous guest of the show, Frank Cross holds. I want to know if you could speak to Hunter right now and offer him some insight to maybe get this win. What insight would you give to Hunter?
Hunter is. I'm sure you've met Hunter in person. He is. Yeah, he knows when it's raining before anyone else does. You know, he's a big lad, and the only thing he has to do is use his size, because if he turns up and does that, it's very difficult for anyone to stay in contention with him, because he's not just big, he's jacked. The dude is jacked, and it's hard to see how anyone could hang with him. I mean, I know, but I don't, just in case our paths cross, I don't want to give that away. I don't want I don't want to give him too much information, but yeah, he's an absolute unit of a guy, and it's going to be very hard for anyone to hang with him, really.
Very tuned in. Another, colleagues, another one of yours is Daisy Jenkins is going against Casey for the Discovery Wrestling Women's Championship. A very big thing for Daisy, who's been killing it this year. We've been not only just the UK scene, she's been over to Dubai and done stuff there. Do you think this is Daisy's time now to get that championship, or do you think she needs to take a few more lessons under the Redfield, encyclopedia?
I think Daisy's more than ready. She's you spoke to Daisy. You know Daisy. She is that ray of positivity. She's such a driving force. She's been probably more instrumental in my career than she would probably realize. She's fantastic, and I think now is her time to step up and take that title, and bring it back to. Well, she doesn't even have to take it back to Fife now. She can take it back to Livingston, on the good side of the bridge. And
very, very, very nice. And it's sunny over here on the other side of the bridge. I don't mind it. I love it. It's my home indeed. But obviously, your mentor, your teacher, your sensei, Andy Roberts, is going against G Money for the Y Division Championship at Discovery Wrestling. Do you think maybe the student here has some insight the teacher doesn't to get this win and championship?
I think this attitude change that Andy's had for the last year is exactly what he's been needing. Anyone that's I think anyone that spoke with him prior to that could probably see there was a change coming. And I think for his career, it's fantastic that he's decided to just focus on getting that killer instinct. And I think he's a very different person from the last time he wrestled for the Y Division Championship, which I believe was against Joe Coffey many, many years ago. And I think now's his time to take that Y Division Championship. So we've got two of them. We've got the Women's Championship and the Y Division Championship sitting in PWR Pro in Livingston. Not in Fife, in Livingston.
Very true indeed. Well, Redfield, I mean, all very good insights as well. But I want to know for yourself, Redfield, I'm going to propose another dream situation here. I think belts are lovely, as the viewers can see. I'm a big guy of them. If you had to have a dream title around your waist, why this particular title?
I'm going to go the road less traveled, and I'm going to say there's a specific design in this, which is the WCW United States title from around 98, 99. Okay. I think that's an absolutely gorgeous belt. It's the same belt that I remember seeing. It was like DDP, Sting, Bret Hart. They would all they sort of passed back and forth at the tail end of 98. It's an absolutely beautiful title, and it's one that this is a weird thing for me. I always thought that the WCW titles just looked better than the WWF ones at the time.
Okay.
I can't put my finger on why. I just think there was more gold, and it looked more like this is a championship as opposed to like an accessory. And that old style US title for me is just gorgeous. I would love that one. Or failing that, the old WWF European one was pretty sweet as well.
All right, very good choices. A lot of fans on the internet like to say the Winged Eagle is the most beautiful championship of all time. It's the best looking WWE championship. Like, I disagree. I think it's the spinner, just to shit on people's parade.
Yeah, shame Edge never got his old. He was supposed to have one, wasn't he? Like a variation of that, but That never came to pass, I don't think.
Yeah, times will tell in this wonderful world of wrestling. But obviously, Redfield. I mean, think of that. I mean, I think of the good old classic, Chris Redfield, Resident Evil, hell of a game series. And I want to know as well, Redfield, so many characters in that. I think of like Hunk, Chris Redfield, Leon Kennedy, Mr. X, Wesker. And I want to know, Redfield, if you could build a stable of 4 other individuals, but let's say the Resident Evil characters, who would you want in your stable?
I mean, you want Chris there purely for his boulder punching abilities.
Yeah.
Um, you want Leon there because look at him. You gotta have some eye candy there. You would want Wesker purely for the superhuman aspect of it, and from there, I'd probably take Ada.
You don't
Just,
want.
the grappling hook. It's iconic.
Mate, you got your own Judgment Day going on here.
Yeah.
I want to deviate for a second, but I'll talk about these Resident Evil games because my first ever Resident Evil was 5.
Right.
And it was I completed it, I loved it. But with 5 and 6, they're sort of the black sheep of the mainline family. And I know they've been remaking 2, 3, and 4. Going on to 5 and 6, do you think it's going to be a bit of more of a hurdle to remake these games? Should they do more changes? Should they, kind of just do big touch-ups? What do you think is the best way to tackle these 2 kind of black sheep of the mainline series?
So I've had this conversation a few times with my partner, really, and I think with Resident Evil 5, there is the basis of a good game. We played through that I'd already played it, but he hadn't before.
Mm-hmm.
So we played through that for the first time a year or so ago, and it's good. It's fine. It's just it leans more into action as opposed to horror, which is where I think they've been trying to bring the series back to with the remakes. So I think the only way to really do that is to eliminate the co-op thing. The core the core tenet the games are built on, and focus more on the story. Because there is a good game in there. It's just a lot of it is bogged down with, patchy AI, or in the case of Resident Evil 6, it's just dull. It's just boring. Was the problem. Which I've never said about a Resident Evil game. Even Code Veronica, which isn't my favorite, has got the weird cross-dressing guy who dresses as his dead sister, or whatever the plot of that is. Like yeah. You've got something there to be like, this is a weird Resident Evil game. You don't really have that in 6, so I don't know how they would remake that without just completely burning it to the ground and starting again. Whereas I feel like 5 at least has the semblance of a plot they could use and making it fit in.
Of course. I mean, should Chris keep his boulder punching powers though? That's the main thing.
100. They absolutely have to, because they referenced it in Village, so they can't take it out of this new this sort of new timeline. They absolutely have to keep that in, otherwise that throwaway line from Heisenberg doesn't make any sense, and I'm clinging to that. Also, that the fans would absolutely maul them if they didn't include that.
Of course they would. Of course they would. I mean, 7 and 8, Village, were very good, very very good. First person, everything. I think of Lady Dimitrescu took over the internet for like 2 months of just how popular she was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's surprised that Resident Evil was, for the people watching me not be familiar, its history with live action films and hasn't been what's the perfect word here, decent. Hasn't been very decent. They had the Mia Jovovich movies, which I think the first 2 were good. Then after that, it just went off the goddamn hurdle. And then they had that Netflix series. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I
there, Redfield, because I mean, I heard a line in there that I was immediately like, "No, I'm dipping out."
Was it the Zootopia line by any chance?
Yes, it was the Zootopia line.
Yeah. I gave it a chance because I know a lot of people would probably not, because of the changes to the characters. Well, there was only really one established character, I think, which was Wesker. I was like, well, I'll give it a chance, but I dipped out not round about the time, not because of that line, but around about that time, I decided there was there was things that were I could better spend my time doing,
Yeah.
like playing a Resident Evil game that I enjoyed.
Bingo, 100% there. But I mean, it's kind of interesting because obviously, there's sort of a resurgence of classic horror games. Silent Hill 2 coming back to the PS5 and a movie adaptation continuing the original film from back in the day with Resident Evil. How do you think they should tackle a live action adaptation? Should they maybe do a continuation of the second movie with Mia from the Escape from Raccoon City,
And
or Scorch Earth redo?
in all honesty, just read like if they wanted to do, I don't understand why when they did Resident Evil they decided to just not do anything related to the games at all other than the name
Hmm.
and the T virus. So I would absolutely have they could absolutely build like a decent horror film from the first Resident Evil game, just set in the Spencer estate. Much like they did with the first Silent Hill film, which it has its flaws, but it's still watchable. It still feels like you're watching a bit of Silent Hill media. And now we've got the same director coming back to actually do a proper sequel, which is fantastic. So yeah, just like I'd really like them to see something like, and this is out of the blue, but I'd love to see them get one of the sort of newer horror directors, someone like Jordan Peele, to do something like that. Get his spin on it, because every horror film of his I've watched, I've loved. So I'd love to see him sort of tackle something like that. Like it's all original properties he does, I think. So maybe try like an established one.
Oh, hey, that'd be absolutely good and interesting indeed. And obviously, we did touch upon, Resident Evil Village, which is Resident Evil 8, and that had sort of a kind of a cliffhanger ending with even, Winter's Door. I mean, we're going on with, being the 9th game in the mainline series at that point. Where do you think they can go with that, Redfield?
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I think it'll probably center on Chris, because I think that's the other cliffhanger, as well as what him and his squad's going to get up to. So that's probably where we'll go. But we've not had Chris in a mainline game since 6. And even in the remakes, he's not been in remake 2 or 3 really. So I can see them bringing back Chris and following him going up against the BSAA. So that would be interesting. But if it's Chris, it would. How do you make that a horror game and not an action game? Is the problem. So I don't know. I trust Capcom though. Capcom's been proven in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. They're really trustworthy with this stuff. They've done Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 and 4, Devil May Cry 5. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, but they've got a very they've proven that they can do stuff like this well. So I'm just sort of happy to see where they go.
Very true, Redfield. Capcom have done some things well, but in my mind, I always think, why have they not remade Dino Crisis?
Well, they made that game that totally wasn't Dino Crisis, but it
Sorry,
was.
Primeval or some shite like that. And it's like, oh, cool, it's Dino Crisis without Regina in it. Cool, that's definitely what I want.
I don't know why they're leaving money on the table. I really don't. Just use the like the Resident Evil engine. It genuinely feels like leaving money on the table to me. But I'm not a Capcom executive, so one of the first things I would do was get that Dino Crisis 1 and Dino Crisis 2 remake.
No Dino Crisis 3? No,
I wasn't a fan of that one, to be fair. But if they're touching it up, then why not? But see how they do with 1 first, I guess. Speaking of remakes, if there's one, if you haven't played it, I would give Dead Space that came out at the start of the year.
Beautiful. I remember playing 1 and 2 when they originally came out, and that was the most joy I had with a video game for the longest time. Isaac Clarke, one of the best protagonists in that engineering suit. Mwah.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, and they actually gave him a personality in this one, which is weird, but it works. It really works.
Hey, bringing back Gunnar Wright was the best thing they could have done, getting the voice of it, who is Isaac. I mean, I want John Carpenter to do that Dead Space live action movie now.
Absolutely, yeah.
a man can dream. But Redfield, we're coming to the end of our time here, and what I love to do with every guest, I like to propose, kind of another dream situation. I'm going to mention 3 properties here, and I want you to pick out of that property which character you would like to base an attire on.
Okay.
So, first one I'm going to choose is Silent Hill 2.
I mean, it would have. It has to be Pyramid Head, doesn't it? Because otherwise, if it's James Sunderland, it's just like a green bomber jacket, isn't it? Or a green sort of military jacket. So, yeah, I'm not sure how easy that would be to sort of wrestle in. Or I could go with Maria, but I'd probably be stepping on Lexi Kimball's turf if I did that. So we'll stick with Pyramid Head.
Fair dues. The next one on the pros is Mega Man.
Oh, there's one. I would say X, actually. Just X.
Okay.
Just the sort of, like the sort of bigger version, or Proto Man, or whatever he's called in Europe. But yeah, absolutely that. We'll go with him.
Right, second last one, because we've got 2 left, so I'm going to choose one here. I want to choose, let's say, Metroid.
It's got to be Samus, isn't it? I always want to call her Seamus because because of Seamus, which would be a totally different game. But yeah,
I mean, Seamus doing the bro kick to a Metroid. I mean, hey, I'll take it. That could be a fun little nod in some 2K25 game. And final one, of course, is Resident Evil.
You've got. I've always loved Leon's sort of like the jacket he has at the start of Resident Evil 4. Like I've always wanted one of those jackets, but they're so hard to find one exactly like it. So yeah, one like that, either that or Dr. Salvador would be a interesting look with the sort of the burlap sack. But then I'd be depriving everyone of this, and couldn't possibly do that to them. So
fair dues. It's perfect for the poster, and you can't, do that because you'd lose out people buying for the, the show. So we need that. Exactly, my friend. But Redfield, my friends, it's been an absolute pleasure here having you on the Soul Sessions. But what I love to do with every guest as well, if they've loved what they've heard of your story and they want to see you in the ring, what kind of dates have you got lined up for the future, my friend?
So we have a show coming up in December. Now a PWR Pro presents. I believe tickets are live for that. You can find it on the PWR Pro's website, on their Instagram, on their Twitter. That's all I've really got in the pipeline for now. We've got 2 shows running in December. I believe it's the 6th and the 7th, or the 7th and the 8th. It will be on their website. So that's probably where I'll next be.
Hey, fair dues, my friend. And obviously, viewers, I know in this modern day and age, I've said it before, people are lazy. They want all their streaming stuff now. I can't wait for episodes. I can't be bothered finding a link. So I will be including Redfield's Instagram link of the description of this video. Click that. You can follow and gain some insight and knowledge. Well, viewers, thank you for watching another episode of the Soul Sessions. I would say the whole YouTube shtick, but YouTube's been around since 2005. You know what to do. I ain't going to rebuttal it anymore. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of the Soul Sessions. If I could hit the end record button, that'd be really fucking nice.